I'll just introduce myself first. I am Asha Cowie. I'm the workstream lead for establishing the NHS Digital Academy, and I'll talk a little bit about that when we do a presentation shortly. I'm just going to go around on my screen, and if you can just say who you are and where you're from, and then look forward to hearing from you all shortly. Amy.
Yes, hi everyone. My name is Amy and I am the programme lead for the Digital Health Leadership PG DIP at Imperial College London.
Perfect. And Alex?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Alex Wilson. I'm a physio by training, and up until recently, I was the clinical advisor for digital for AHPs within Susan Rastrick's chief AHP team within NHS England, and I was in cohort 2 of the Digital Academy.
Fab. Alex is actually going to be your chair for most of this session, and I got nervous and I started introducing us all, so I will hand back to Alex shortly, so sorry for stealing your introductions. David, over to you, please.
Hi, I'm David, a paramedic who's interested in clinical informatics and digital healthcare, probably because before I became a paramedic over 20 years ago now, I used to work for an IT kind of web startup and did e-commerce consultancy, and have been eternally frustrated by the lack of progress. Done a few jobs. I think I did what Ewan did before in Department of Health days. I was completely faking it in those days, but we'll come on to that a bit later. And I've been in cohort 2 of the Digital Academy. So look forward to telling you a bit more about my story later.
Ewan?
Yeah, hi, I'm Ewan McCormiskey. I'm a physio by background. I've not actually been in the Digital Academy yet, but they've let me get myself onto the panel here, and I'll be talking a little bit about the importance of digital in physiotherapy. I'm lucky enough to be the digital and data lead at the Chartered Society of Physiotherapy, and look forward to speaking to you and join the conversation later.
And last but not least, the lovely Melissa.
Good afternoon, folks. Really great to be here. My name is Melissa Anderson. I'm an occupational therapist. I'm the Associate Director of Digital Health Transformation and an Associate CCO at Surrey and Borders Partnership Foundation Trust, which is a mental health organisation in Surrey. And I'm a part of cohort 3 of the Digital Health Academy. So I haven't quite finished yet, but can reflect on my experience so far.
Great, thank you. Alex, shall I dive into mine and Amy's presentation, and then I'll hand over to you and make sure I stop talking.
Please do.
and sorry again for stealing your chair's introductions. Okay, I'm just getting the slides up. Okay, hopefully someone can confirm you can see my screen. I can see Melissa nodding, so that's, and Melissa, you're the only person I can see now, so I'll be talking to you. So me and Amy are just going to give a high-level overview of the programme and a bit about the application process. So for those of you that don't know the history, the NHS Digital Academy and the consequence Digital Health Leadership Programme directly fell out of recommendations from the WOCTA review in 2016, where there was an identified need to develop and invest in our digital leaders. HEE have again selected Imperial College London as our partner to deliver the programme, and they will be delivering cohort 4 with the University of Edinburgh and HDR UK. We don't have time today to go into the detail of it, but our future vision does look at expanding different offerings to a wider range of individuals. So in the future, that's why the work stream is called establishing the NHS Digital Academy. We hope there's very much more to come, but today we're really pleased to be able to talk about what's very much a flagship programme and has been very highly regarded. So me and Amy are going to talk about at a high level the application process and a bit about the programme, and as mentioned, me and Amy will try and cover off application specific questions in the chat so that the panel questions can be more focused around their experience and views, which is really valuable. So starting off just with the timeline really. So we have launched a new website. Oh, hang on a minute. No, that's fine. Sorry, that's just me. So we've launched a new website, and cohort 4 applications are now open. Our new website is quite new. That's why it's a new website. But if you want to feedback on anything, please do. You know, so we can continue to adapt it and evolve it. So any feedback is welcome. The application window will close on the 30th of April, and then we will be doing shortlisting and long listing in May, June, and then advising people of successful and unsuccessful outcomes in June, July. One of the things we're introducing this year is to do feedback and signposting for all applicants, and we'll be doing that in July, August. And we will firm up these timelines over the next few weeks. It will partially be dictated by how many applications we get, but we will post those on our website just to manage expectations. For those of you who are successful, they will then complete an academic admissions process with Imperial College London. We want to highlight that we don't want degrees to be a barrier to applying. It's not a prerequisite. We know not everyone will have one. So if you don't, as part of the academic admissions process, you will go through a process anyway to show your previous academic records or equivalent professional experience. It is a well-supported process, so if you're concerned about this at all, get in touch with us. But fundamentally, we don't want people to be put off from applying due to not having a previous degree, so please don't let that put you off. I've got the residential dates up for residential 1 and residential 2 for September and December. Our preference for cohort 4 is, as long as it's safe to do so, to include a minimum of 3 days in-person learning, which will be a 2-day and a 1-day block. In addition, there will be an in-person graduation ceremony, as long as it's safe to do so. So residentials 1 and 2 will both be virtual, and we'll update the dates for 3 and 4 as soon as we can. And you know, thank you for everyone for being understanding, and we don't, at the moment it's just impossible to say what we will and won't be able to do. But you know, we're really pleased to see that cohort 3 has continued virtually, and I know Melissa will be able to share some of her experiences about this as part of the session today. So who is it for? So fundamentally, you need to be working in a role where you're required to drive and implement practical digital transformational change in your organisational system. You need to evidence this in your application. You need to be working in an NHS public health or social care role in England to apply. We know job titles and associated responsibilities are really varied in this space, so we don't want to exclude individuals based on that. So, you know, focus on the application criteria and what we're looking from you. Don't get too hung up on your job title at this stage. Applications for the other 3 nations aren't open yet. We are currently exploring this, and we will share on our website as soon as we've got something to share about that. Also, just to note, for the 100 places in England, they are fully funded by HEE. That includes the overnight stays for multi-day residentials, but individuals or their organisations will have to pay for travel costs and other expenses such as meals, you know, while travelling, alongside additional accommodation if that's required, for example, either side of a residential. But the actual programme, the academic component, all of that is funded by HEE for these places. So in terms of entry criteria, you'll need to have 3 to 5 years of relevant experience in informatics or digital health. One of the questions we often get is, does this have to be in a formal informatics role? Because we know that many people have sort of dabbled in digital and informatics before, taking on, more of a responsibility within your current role. So we'd very much say absolutely draw on from a previous experience, even if your job title wasn't an informatics job title as such. So I think that's a really important point to make on these webinars. You'll need executive level support from your organisation. You'll be able to attend all experiential learning and live teaching. This may be in person or virtual, as previously mentioned. You are empowered and supported to apply new skills, learning and behaviours to projects within your organisational system. That's why the exec sponsorship is really important. We want individuals to demonstrate commitment to the professionalism of our workforce and embed the learning within your organisations and your systems. And we want you to have fun, and cheesy but true. So what will you be able to do differently? So as part of the programme, you'll start out by setting out your goals for the year ahead in a personal development plan, which you should agree with your exec sponsor. From the start and then throughout the programme, you'll very much be expected to engage in reflective practice about how you're progressing towards those development goals. As part of undertaking the programme, you'll then need to identify themes or programmes of work which are of strategic benefit to your organisation. You'll then apply your knowledge and your skills to those themes or programmes, and that will allow you to use best practice models, frameworks and approaches in your work, in your daily work. Reflective practice can be a bit strange for those of you who aren't used to it. The programme uses learning journals to support you with this, and that enables you to capture the translation of your learning into practice and achieve that real world impact and change. And finally, at the end, you know, hopefully face to face, it might be virtual, let's see, but you'll come together to celebrate the end of the programme, presenting highlights both of your professional growth as well as the impact in the workplace to your peers on the programme. So I'm going to hand over to Amy to talk a bit more about the module structure and the programme itself, and then I'll finish off with what other support is available to you.
Thanks, Asha. So here I just want to give you a quick glance across the programme. We'll start with the digital onboarding towards the end of August, where you get access to Imperial systems and resources, including academic tutoring, support and pastoral care. And you will have access to short modules preparing you to academic study on postgraduate level. From module 1 onward, we'll be giving you a grounding in the overview of health systems, and gradually we'll introduce you to more specialist areas. These modules are delivered online, so the majority of your program is online, using blended learning, live webinars and assessment tutorials. The leadership module that you see on the bottom left corner, module 6, it runs across the year, parallel and in dialogue with your online modules, and it will start with your personal development plan, as Asha mentioned, that is agreed with your executive sponsor to ensure that you remain on track throughout the program, and indeed you adapt as your projects change or as your job scope changes to make most impact at your organization. And the leadership module will also help you forge connections across the cohort to collaborate with others. It will guide you on how to apply learning to a work setting and inform your reflective practice that will accompany your learning journey.
Thanks, Amy. You can see we've been practicing to get through this at super speed. So just to finish off before I pass over to the wonderful Alex and the panel, so you've got some support throughout the application process. As mentioned, we're doing drop-in webinars throughout the process. We've got another 4 to come. The next one's on Wednesday. They're really focused on the application process and much more detail on the programme, including our approach to inclusive recruitment, shortlisting advice and pastoral support available. You can register for these on the website. One of us will stick the link in the chat in a second. And we're also going to record the one that we do this week so that that's available on demand. Panel sessions with alumni like this one, great to see so many of you here. We're doing one in collaboration with One Health Tech and one in collaboration with FedIP in the coming weeks. Feel free to join. It doesn't matter what professional group you're from, you know, it's very much all for everyone to understand the views of panelists and their experiences of the programme. We've got provision of an application checklist and supporting guidance on shortlisting criteria. We've made this really public and transparent this year because we don't want people to be guessing what we're looking for when we're scoring. So we hope that will help you in writing a successful application. We've got more online content coming out. Watch this space over the next week or two, including support for exec sponsors, a video around expectations. We will continue to support inquiries on email, Twitter, and of course on the webinars like this. And if you do have a look around our website, we've got more information on the future vision and our inclusive recruitment report, which is hopefully helpful. So I'm going to now pass over to Alex, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Amy and Asha, for that start. Ewan, we jumping over to yourself now, I believe, to talk briefly from your perspective.
Yeah, thanks, Alex, and hi everyone. I've been keeping a check on the names coming in. I recognise a number of them, so it's great to see the people that I know. Those people will know me and know well that I am passionate about digital as part of our roles as physios or wider than that as AHPs. It's critically important that now of any time that we absolutely maximise the skills that we have in digital. it can feel like whatever organisation, whatever flavour of AHP you are, you probably feel slightly isolated and frustrated by what tech you've got available to you. There's only one real way of getting involved and getting started to change and do that, and that's to start to grow your network, to learn a little bit more, and to try and get involved with it, and stop tech being something that happens to us, and let digital be something that we are in terms of delivering our services in a better way, getting better outcomes for our patients or for our clients. So we need to link people up together. That's something that I've done at the Chartered Society of Physiotherapy. And what's been bubbling out from that is that there is real interest here. And what we need to do is to get that interest a lot stronger, more informed, so we can start to make the differences that we're all needing to make. I am definitely not the first digital physiotherapist. I am probably the on the list, along with a number of you. There are people that have been trying to do this for years, for decades before we got going. But they've not had an opportunity like we've got just now. So COVID's awful. It's a dreadful thing. It's impacted so many different people in different ways. But if we're going to take one good thing out of COVID, it has to be the spark that leads to the digital revolution in health and social care that we've needed for years or for decades. So now, out of any time, in the past, it's critically important to try and use that to spark us into moving forward, using digital as part of a way to deliver better health and care for our patients, for the public. So part of that is that we need to walk the walk as well as talk the talk. And I think something like the Digital Academy is really, really important to give us that ability to walk the walk as well as talk the talk, make ourselves stronger, more knowledgeable, better network, so we can start to deliver the change that we all want to do. So as I said earlier, I've not been, I'm not on any of the cohorts to date. I hope to be some point in the future, but what I am is really passionate about using digital as a way of improving the health and care that we offer to our members, to our patients or to our clients. And as a representative from the professional bodies, we as organisations want our members to be better informed, and Digital Academy is a great thing to try and make that happen. So I'm here really just to fly the flag, and make sure that we, if you're considering applying, that you do so. And if you know people who would also be really good candidates, get them to apply too. We want more and more AHPs as part of these programs. And I'd love to give Asha and Amy and the others a real stonking headache about how many AHPs are applying. The last point I want to make is, if you've not guessed already, this is not an English accent. I am a Scot exiled in Northern Ireland. And so it's really, really critical. And I look forward to hearing from Asha and the team when they've got stuff to share about how other people from outside of England can apply and be part of this. The learning that they can get in this will affect the whole of the UK. So it's really important that we all look for that. And while I'm on my soapbox, Digital Academy in England, if you're based in England, look at what else is going on in other countries as well. There's loads to learn from there. So don't let geographical boundaries limit your learning. So look to build those networks and learn from as many people as you can get hold of. I'll now jump off my soapbox, Alex, and I'll let others talk. Thank you.
Thanks, Ewan. So what we're going to jump into now is for the alumni on the call, so David, Melissa and I, just to briefly give you guys a flavour of what our experience was like in our respective programs. So Melissa, as the current student studying on this program, do you want to just kick us off with what your experience has been like thus far?
Absolutely. And like I said, good afternoon, folks. I've been reading through the chat, and it's so wonderful to have, I feel like, a good multidisciplinary audience here. Very proud to see that. I guess for me, I was quite fortunate in my organisation where two of my colleagues had the opportunity to be a part of cohort 1 and 2 of the Digital Health Academy. So over a 2-year period, I've been able to see this really kind of fascinating change in my digital directorate. I started to see our language changed, how we were approaching digital programs. I started to see a real shift of focus from tools and kits and tech into people and process. And I was really quite intrigued what had shifted our mindset in our digital directorate. And the common denominator there was absolutely some learning from the Digital Health Academy. And when the cohort 3 applications opened, I put my hand forward and said, I think I really want to be a part of this. I've been working in digital as a clinician for 6 or 7 years, but a lot of my learning was on the job learning. You know, I'd put my hand up and I'd try and play around with Visio to go and do some process mapping to capture some requirements. I'd put my hand up and take on some roles around sort of stakeholder management and change management and being a part of programs and taking on work streams, but it was a lot of like I said, on the job learning. I didn't necessarily have kind of some real sort of tools or structure or theory to my thinking or my approach. And that's what led me to apply to the Digital Health Academy. For me, I wanted to bring something that I want an opportunity where I could be me, because I think differently. I'm an occupational therapist. I'm also really, really passionate about, you know, interoperability programs that I'd been working on. So I had some ideas around how I wanted something to shape my learning. And I was also on that career sort of pathway of, rather than just being a clinical lead in projects and programs in the digital space, I was working towards a CCIO career pathway, and I really wanted to invest in that. So that was kind of my trigger to apply, my intrigue and interest to apply. Being on cohort 3, we're about halfway through the program now. And my experience to date has been being able to think about applying the learning in my day-to-day kind of practice. So it's really helped me put my hand up to say, you know, I think I want to take on some senior responsible officer roles on some programs. I want to be in that sort of driver's seat where I can start thinking a little bit more strategically. I would like to be in a position where I can contribute to the thought leadership on some of our projects and programs. And some of the modules and the assignments, I've been able to tease out some real practical sort of applications to do that. So not only am I learning along the way, I'm finding I have an opportunity to give stuff a go, which has been really great.
Terrific. Thank you for that. David, coming over to you, obviously coming from the other end, not from the hospital perspective that Melissa is in, coming from the chaotic world of the community in the paramedic world, what brought you to wanting to put your hand up and join the Digital Academy?
Yeah, hi and hello everyone. I'm hopefully going to do a good enough job to be as articulate as Melissa and try and explain, but long story short, joined the ambulance service 20 years ago. I think I get a medal next year. How terribly exciting is that? And found myself feeling quite frustrated. I'd worked for an e-commerce startup in the late 90s and came to the NHS and was agog at no email, just unbelievable, you know, self-duplicating clinical records, no integration, no shared records, couldn't quite believe it. And I don't know how it happened, but 10 years later, I applied for a job as AHP National Clinical Lead for Department of Health, which I did as a job share. And I worked with the AHP professional bodies. We ran NARPIST, as it was called in those days, NAHPIST, trying to drive forward some of the digital stuff. And I just share a couple of things. I remember I used to, I think it was the CCIO summer school when it was first there. I remember turning up to some meetings with lots of lovely doctor colleagues and meeting with industry, and when they discovered I was a paramedic, it was you know, everyone turned their back at me and ran away. Meanwhile, did a few other jobs in NHS England and HSCIC. By the way, my cat's decided to come here to start meowing. He thinks I'm talking to him. I can't do anything about it. I have done, as I guess, just kind of lots of different jobs trying to do national and local leadership around just actually not, it's not trying to be a leader, trying to do change, and finding myself feeling quite frustrated because it's such slow going. And that said, some of the stuff that we started 10 years ago, for example, having ambulance records included within this stroke national audit plan, and things like the ambulance data set, they're coming to fruition now, if not in place. So it does take a long time to do it. Anyway, I'm rambling. Point is, this opportunity came forward. I was working in NHS England, and I thought it was the opportunity for me to try and consolidate my professional career with some education to underpin it, because I felt like, my critical care colleagues, my primary care colleagues, independent prescriber colleagues as paramedics, they had a very clear career plan and I didn't, and I felt like I'd been faking it for years. So I joined the Digital Academy program in cohort 2 to try and fill the gap. Has it? Alex, am I allowed to go through the kind of what's happened and what it's like? Is that okay?
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, it kind of has. 10 years ago, I did a master's program, didn't finish it. That's another story. Collar of shame on for that one. And I learned lots of management theories. I've been revisiting those theories as part of the Digital Academy program, but within a digital context. And the stuff that I got out of it was this opportunity for bringing everyone's level up at the same time, regardless of professional background, managers, commissioners, clinicians from all different disciplines, being able to apply some of those management theories with some additional stuff, but together work as a virtual and actual team in terms of developing each other's thinking. Why is it important that AHPs are part of that? Well, guess what? We deliver care in partnership with the rest of the system. And one of the biggest values for me out of the Digital Academy program is the peer support group. Without those guys, I wouldn't have been able to get through the postgraduate diploma in COVID. And there's absolutely not a cat's chance in Hades I'd be getting through the master's dissertation that I'm currently doing. But it's more than that, being able to work together, bounce off of each other, have that professional network. And actually you find that this family of people that have gone through Digital Academy and everyone around them are starting to do this movement for change in terms of digital healthcare. And as you rightly say, COVID's given us an opportunity for that. So I've been very lucky. I started off with the National Director of Operations for NHS England being my sponsor. I went back to the ambulance service and my chief executive's been my sponsor. And that's pretty good, although everyone's been slightly distracted with COVID recently and it's been pretty grim. And I suppose I'll just finish by saying, what's the benefit from me? Has this changed my life? In a way, my career's gone backwards if you think about it in terms of seniority and opportunities. But this is a marathon where everyone needs to be doing their bit nationally, locally and stuff. And for me, I discovered that actually I wanted to be closer to the front line and involved in change. And that's why I'm back in the ambulance service, working in a space where thinking about taking up a role which has SRO responsibility for clinical records, being able to use data for a kind of force for good, and trying to do the digital revolution back where I started 20 years ago. It's a bit of a ramble, really. This is an exciting opportunity to be able to bring up all of our skills and thinking and knowledge and work together as a force for good en masse.
Terrific, thank you for that. So I'm going to echo a few things that both my two colleagues have talked about already, and sort of why I came to apply. And when I did, so I looked, so I've been working in a large acute provider who implemented an EPR way back in about 2011. And throughout that period, I've been there as the person championing what AHPs need out of the system, but very often from a position of the sort of voice in the corner saying, and this is what we need. And one of the reasons I looked for the Digital Academy and it was to bump up my skills in being able to articulate and influence and push for what we needed as AHPs. And we're such a diverse community. We have very different requirements when you look at the entire digital ecosystem and landscape. And that's why I looked around for what training was on offer, and the Digital Academy was there. And I had a colleague who was very lucky to get onto cohort 1, so I had somebody who I could find out what their experience was like, and that really told me that, yeah, this is something I really want to look to get on to benefit from. And my experience very much like David's, is I met and I'm part of a peer group 13. We do exist, and we still talk. My WhatsApp's been going off this morning with the people that I was in my peer group with. It's now a lifelong network that I can bounce things off, but I've also got the benefit of the wider cohort that I was in, cohort 2, but also the alumni up to cohort 1, and when cohort 3 graduate, we'll have a bigger community of people to bounce things off. And that's one of the fundamental things that the Digital Academy has brought me. It's this network of people that I can tap into, I can talk to, I can ask questions of. I've in recent time moved on to a role in NHS England, and actually I bumped into quite a lot of my peers and alumni in that role, and it was really helpful because we were coming from our problems and our different situations with a lot of common ground, a lot of common knowledge, which was really helpful. I think one of the other big things just to say about my experience, and we'll come on to some more examples of this in a minute, is obviously as AHPs, we are a disparate group. We have had pieces of work that have been brought forward by NARPIST before, and the AHP digital framework is a prime example of that, a tool to forward our digital aspirations. And having people step up and join the Digital Academy and become equipped to lead for our AHP colleagues, but then to cross over, as Melissa does in her CCIO role and other colleagues, AHPs around the country are doing, where we are stepping out of purely AHP roles and saying, look at us, we've got a skill set that the system needs. And as the ICS transformation keeps going apace, I think the digital AHP skill set will be even more beneficial to the system transformation that's coming. And the Digital Academy, in my experience, has equipped me very well for thinking in that way and operating in that sphere. So that's sort of where I come to this from. What I wanted to do now is throw it open to the other people on this call to say, we have told you a bit about our experience, and we've probably got some more examples that we can talk to. But actually, this is your opportunity to ask us some questions. So we can either pick those out of the chat, or if you want to raise your hand, and I'll come to you, and you can unmute and either ask us specifically your question, or or in general. So whoever wants to kick us off first, put your hand up and I will just bring up my list of people. Amy, go on.
Yes,
fire
I have
away.
a question to Melissa, because we very briefly, just in a prep call, mentioned that she has an example of what good looks like with your executive sponsor. And I've just touched on Alistair's question about, are you supposed to do it in your private time, work time? So how does that work? So I wonder if Melissa could tell us about her experience.
Of course, I was madly typing away there, Alistair, and I thought, no, hopefully we can just have a chat about it. So I think I met with my CDIO, Toby Avery, who's my exec sponsor, even in planning to apply, because I wanted to talk about, how do I get the most out of this experience? How do we chisel out the time in, as I can imagine as well, everybody's already busy schedules and you know, our responsibilities in our jobs, that I could get the best out of the learning, that we could, you know, along the way choose projects and programs that are going to align to my learning. You know, making sure that we could plan across the year to have time away, real time away, that you can dedicate to the residentials, and that you can communicate and have that protected time to attend them. Also how to sort of plan in some time where you might want to bring some of your learning into your workplace, if it meant, getting a group of colleagues together to work on something or run a workshop. So it was having those real conversations in the beginning of what the year ahead might look like, to get that, I guess, commitment to have some time to dedicate to the learning. We also did my PDP plan together. So, I took in some initial thoughts, but where my exec sponsor was really able to help actually healthily challenge some of my goals was around thinking about, well, you've said you want to move away from some of the heavy lifting and the doing, and you want to get into that kind of thought leadership space. So where do we find opportunities for you? So how about we find some ICS sort of roles where you could represent the organisation? So we were able together to define the goals and also find opportunities that I could put the learning into practice. And what I tend to do is along the way, I let Toby, my exec sponsor, know how I'm going. And there are times when I'm struggling, maybe with some of my work and my assignments, that I block out a time and we have a call and we talk it through. So he's been able to help me at times actually pick out the right kind of project to apply some learning, or help me to then further network to find someone to talk to as well that might be able to support me in my thinking. So my recommendation is to find the right person, have those conversations early around what it might look and feel like the year to come. Get that support to have some focused time and dedicated learning, and involve them in your journey, so that you can also demonstrate what you're giving back to the organisation too. If we're getting that time to participate in the learning, there's something about being able to share that knowledge back to your organisation and colleagues, and we've been able to work that through together as well.
Thanks, Melissa. I wanted to very briefly pick up on something that Ewan said earlier on, and in regards to the all nations. And we had the benefit in cohort 2 of having colleagues from NHS Wales, from the Northern Ireland health system, and also from Scotland. And it goes a long way to my learning, is that talking to those colleagues, and some of which were in my peer group. I had a colleague from Wales, and it was really helpful to be able to bounce off experience and approaches. And we've all got a lot of the same issues. There are differences in scale, but actually it was really beneficial, especially talking, and I shared a very useful taxi ride with my colleagues from Northern Ireland back to the airport in Durham, from Durham to Newcastle, because their perspective on things was really interesting, because they were at a point of purchasing Epic for the whole of Northern Ireland. So it was really interesting talking to them with their respective perspectives from a program management point of view, from a medical point of view. They even had a lawyer in their team. So it was really interesting to talk and get those different national perspectives on this. So certainly going back to Ewan's question earlier on about finding information out, it will be really positive that continues, because for me, certainly, it was of real benefit. Ewan, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to grow that point a wee bit more, Alex. So I've spoken to a lot of people, different professions over the last 10 years or so, around all sorts of aspects of digital, and I'm yet to find a completely unique problem that nobody else in the UK is experiencing. So there'll be variations on similar themes here. And some people, if they've got a solution, everybody needs to be, rolling out that solution and doing whatever. There is no silver bullet in digital health, so there is no perfect system that will solve all of your challenges, but there are different ways to go about doing it, and that's where the sharing bit comes in. So what David's doing for paramedics in England can work for social workers in Northern Ireland, and what Melissa's doing for OTs can work for speech and language therapists elsewhere in the UK. So say that there's so much learning to be done across profession, but also just within our own professions as well, is that we need to break down some of these silos. And what David was saying about summer school, David, it's been a number of years since I saw you in person, but we were cut from the same cloth. So I hate that feeling, and it can feel like at times as AHPs we're kind of, I don't know, a bit of an afterthought, because it's a world that is digital, is a world that is dominated by medics. And let's not beat about the bush. They're usually white male medics, and that's not a good thing. So as AHPs, because we see things through a different lens, we might come from different backgrounds, different bits of the country, whatever else, we can bring in that diversity of thinking, diversity of experience that makes things better. So we can contribute to the group learning as well as get the learning for ourselves. And it's critically important that we do that. Shameless plug, but we just launched this morning a diversity study into the digital and informatics physiotherapy group to try and understand how we better deliver that within my profession. And so the physios that are on the call will be seeing that in their inboxes. But we need to do more of that, and the Digital Academy needs to be more like that. It's a more diverse group professionally, as well as all the other characteristics, will deliver better learning for the group as a whole.
Thanks, Ewan. Melissa, you've got your hand up.
I think taking it back to the application process, there's something here, if I reflect on my experience writing my application, was my first draft I took to my exec sponsor, and he went, "It doesn't sound like you. What's in this that actually represent you, that's unique, that is Melissa, an occupational therapist, your experiences?" So I think there's my biggest tip, if we're thinking about supporting ourselves as allied health professionals, in your application, showcase what makes you different. Showcase your thinking and your approach to digital and data that is different, so that we have your voice represented, and we have more allied health professionals in the next cohort. So don't hide behind some, to Ewan's point around some generic language about being digital clinicians. Celebrate what makes you unique as an allied health professional, and be brave and put that in your application.
Thank you, Melissa. David.
I joined the Faculty of Clinical Informatics probably just before I applied to the Digital Academy programme. I admit it was a little bit painful spending another couple of £100 a year for another professional membership, but the reason I did it was to make sure that there was a paramedic in the membership. I think at that time I was the only one. I think there's about 4 or 5 of us now, maybe more. Apologies if there's any listening or viewing this webinar, and they are. I think it's really important that we recognise that many of those first members of the Faculty of Clinical Informatics were doctors, and they are seeking to sort out revalidation for digital healthcare and clinical informatics. I've put in the chat here, I think that we need to build on the work that's been done by many people trying to develop an AHP career framework for digital healthcare and clinical informatics. It's a generic speciality, and it's a speciality. Everyone needs digital and informatics competencies, but it is a place where some people can specialise. I'm certainly talking to the College of Paramedics to get it recognised so that I can register on the voluntary register as a consultant paramedic in digital healthcare. We need to do this stuff. We need to do it and create some equality. Everything's about equality these days, but we as a group of professionals need to have a voice, and that's why we need really all you fantastic colleagues joining the Digital Academy programme and coming and joining things like the Faculty of Clinical Informatics, so that we can make sure we've got that equality of voice. And why is that important? Because we also represent different elements of the healthcare system, the journey, and especially advocacy for patients. We advocate for patients in a way that other professions don't have the same opportunity that we do, because we have insights into elements of their life that other disciplines don't.
Thanks, David. And I was going to pick up briefly on that point. I've just been doing a national role where a lot of the work I was doing was looking at the difference in what opportunities out there for us as AHPs and for our colleagues in other professions. And I really want to push more AHPs to apply to Digital Academy, so we can show that we need roles like this created in provider trusts, in the new integrated care systems nationally, where we don't have an AHP digital leadership post at the moment. And getting more people through into programs like this will mean that we have more potential candidates when jobs like that are created. And it's really important that we, for some of us, through our allyship of things like the Shuri network and other opportunities, bring through the diversity of our clinical community, our clinical AHP community to this space. And that's really important. When I joined the Digital Academy, when I went to the first residential in Birmingham about 2 years ago now, everybody seemingly had imposter syndrome in the room. Everybody is coming to that same place thinking, am I in the right place? So one of the things I would say to anybody thinking about applying is, actually, having been there and been through that, I still think I've got imposter syndrome for a lot of things, but actually we need to get more AHPs into that space, because there are a lot of other people who are exactly the same as us. They just come from a different background that we can then learn from and work with and forge, as has been said already, better career opportunities for our colleagues, but also better outcomes for the patients and things that we are managing. Are there other questions that people listening in would like to ask us as people who are on the program or have been through the program? If so, please put your hand up.
I was just going to chuck in, Alex, about imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome can be quite a good thing. So yes, the anxiety that comes with it, not so great, but it shows that you're in a place where you need to be to make the difference, because it's not already happened yet. So let's just flip it around on its head a little bit and just say it's absolutely the place you need to be, because if you think you're the first person, the only person there, then you need to be there to try and shake that up a little bit. So yeah, let's go for that. And I was going to throw in as well about, physiotherapy. So as a profession, our membership is 75% female, and that's definitely not representative of what we see in digital. So if we think about the two digital physiotherapists that are on this call, Alex and I, we would fall into what somebody termed previously as the male pale and going stale. Now, Alex and I would both like to disagree with item 3 of that, but we can't disagree with the first 2. So we need to try and work with people like the Shuri Network to make sure that opportunities come for people to come in from everywhere within our professions to drive things forward. And yeah, we'd love to shake up things like the summer school, Rewired, and all of the digital health conferences and the faculty to try and make it more representative of the professions that it's meant to represent. So yeah, echoes what everyone's saying. It's imperative that the people who are already here make as much noise as we possibly can to make it possible for others that come behind us to have a little bit of an easier ride.
Thanks, Ewan. I think wanted to in a little bit of the time we've got left, just come back and asking my fellow Digital Academy members, what if you can put your finger on, say, what's been the most beneficial, or the thing that's most challenged your way of thinking? Melissa, I'm sure you can kick us off on that.
I think it's been the actual investment in the leadership skill side. It's not just, I think the learning for me has been even to date, a good combination of, technical theory, framework, tools, but all of that. And I think what Amy was alluding to, that module 6 that runs through the whole program. Being able to invest in yourself and think about your leadership style as you're going through your learning. So the reflective journals that you do throughout the program are so incredibly therapeutic. It's a safe place where you can kind of download where your thinking's at, what's going well, what's not, and really reflect on that, and how you can take your learning back into your workplace and be a better digital health leader. I think that's been a really beautiful experience there. I think the next kind of biggest aha and sort of change moment for me too has been probably around the confidence that I have to even be here with you today. to talk about that it's okay to approach and think differently. So, we are trying to, build this sort of multidisciplinary sort of CCIO network at my organisation. And we've got to the point where there's I guess a mindset and understanding that we've got to value the uniqueness of our individual disciplines and what we bring, and how do we align particular programs of work to each other's strengths. And I think that's something else I've really taken away from the Digital Health Academy learning to date, is being able to think about getting to know people in my teams, their skills, their abilities, their capabilities, their experiences, and how we can complement each other and work towards maybe the same goal of developing or deploying something. But it takes that variety of skill and experience, and we can champion that. So I think it's the people bit, the leadership bit of the learning that I've got out of the academy that's really helped sort of that kind of confidence and grow in that area.
Terrific. Thanks, Melissa. David, over to you. Is there something that you could tease out as the thing that's really hit you between the eyes or made you sit up and think, other than you don't want to do a PhD in the future in this space?
Yeah, if you see me doing a PhD, someone needs to medicate me. It would be a bad choice for me, although I can see for others it would be there. Do you know, apart from the fact that it feels like anything is possible, this last 12 months has been just unfathomably busy, and I know many of you have felt that way. And to be able to have got through this thanks to the support and help of the peer support group, but also knowing that there's a whole community of you going through the same difficulties, because yeah, I had great exec support, but when everyone's working ridiculous hours to cope with the COVID peak and colleagues are ill and colleagues are dying and stuff like that, actually it's a bit audacious to start taking study time, so I did it in my own time. But hey, I was locked down, so I had the opportunity to do it with the no holidays. So that's the first thing. You can get through it together. But the second thing, probably the most profound part for me, is, as I said, 10 years previously, I'd done fellowship in leadership for clinicians as a master's program. And I think that I hadn't really consolidated what this stuff meant. Second time round, it's actually meant something. So it meant something because I'd been doing stuff working with AHP professional bodies, with colleagues, trying to change things, trying to introduce the ambulance data set, trying to do all sorts of things. And this time round, because there was a kind of common, because people had a common focus, which was trying to improve digital and clinical informatics, actually it kind of made sense to me, and I actually feel like it's grown me. Don't ask me which particular theory or which particular reference makes sense. It just kind of sits together better. And the one thing that I've taken away is user design. Two things: user-led design, but also benefits realization within the context of electronic medical records. The average time to benefits being 7 to 9 years makes me feel slightly less anxious.
So you're coming to your peak then?
Well, yeah, it'll be retirement soon if I can avoid COVID. Thank you.
Thank you both. I think from my point of view, the bit I wanted to just finish off with, I'm a practical person in this space, and in using this program, what I found was I could bounce directly, and it goes back to something Amy said earlier on. It's the use of what you're learning directly back into your day job. And that's the bit that I found the most beneficial out of all this, from process mapping and bringing that back to actually what's the problem, not what the solution is going to be, what is the problem, and getting into the nitty-gritty of that, then applying things like the user-centered design, and then looking for solutions, and the learning just rolling directly into the day job and not being some theoretical construct that might or might not come back to in the future. That was really helpful. I did a piece of work in the early part of the pandemic in my organization using stuff I was learning at the time in the data analytics module. and that was really, really helpful. So again, it's the practical application, which I think for us as AHPs is absolutely how most of us think and most of us operate.